I have been speaking with Jack O'D. Jack, a volunteer with Clare Civil Defence, was named their Volunteer of the Year recently. He was honoured with the John Cuddihy Volunteer of the Year Award for 2025 for the pivotal role he played in saving the life of an old age pensioner. Here's my chat with Jack, who began by telling me why he joined Clare Civil Defence.
I joined just at the latter end of COVID in around 2022. Why I decided to join Civil Defence is I wanted to challenge myself. Kind of was in the middle of COVID, seeing what was kind of going around. The nation was kind of in a bit of a ebb at the moment, the flow, what was going around. We were kind of all still trying to wrap our heads around from COVID. So I'd known what Civil Defence was for a great number of years. Where I live in NSU, constantly see them go by, coming out of the Quinn Road Business Park. I know some of the work that they've done is quite challenging but very rewarding. So I decided to send an email into the Civil Defence website saying is that when the next recruits course or whenever Clare's recruiting, I'd like to be, put forward for it. And I got a phone call one day from one of our former CDOs, and he said to me, listen, would you mind coming in for an interview? Fill out some paperwork, come in for an interview and we'll see what you're like. Did the interview, did the recruits basic training, and now I'm here a couple of years later.
Just like that.
Pretty much it's very straightforward. There's no fancy application process. It's you go through a board panel interview, how you're going to get on by a three-person panel, and then you go through your Garda vetting, and then from that, then your base recruits course is your CPR, basically your community first responder, how to use a defibrillator, how to do CPR, you do TUSLA certs, and you do a couple of other small things as well, and then you kind of move on from there. From the training, it's a great variety, but you kind of move on from there very quickly after your recruits training. Okay,
so there's a lot of variety involved in it, and I guess obviously the Garda vetting and so on, but part of the interview process, I guess, Jack, is they want to find out more about you as an individual and why you want to join and be a volunteer, and I guess whether you're aware of what you could face, like that you're up for the role, because you're going to be having to roll up your sleeves at times and get stuck in.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I liked about the organisation itself. It's quite different from your other medical response organisations like St. John's and the Red Cross, both which do, by the way, do magnificent work in their local communities. But Civil Defence, and the reason why I liked it is it was founded to basically be a supplement or to be a backup for the frontline response agencies such as the Coast Guard, the Guards, and the National Ambulance Service and your local fire service. Some of the training that you do is you can get qualifications in medical training up to being an emergency medical technician, which is the grade below a paramedic. Swiftwater training as well, so basically being able to rescue people in rivers, because we live literally in the middle of town, the Fergus, and a couple other things that goes on there as well. It's great training. You have your auxiliary fire service, so as we know ourselves, when we were flooded up badly in 2009, we had, before I was a member, I was in secondary school at the time in Flannans. I remember when the water was like come well up the wall in Flannans, and a couple of days later seeing the local Civil Defence unit coming out and pumping out people's homes. So that's another part of the training we do. And we also do radio communications and driving training as well with the 4x4s and the winches and all of that. So the training is very wide and great variety.
Okay, so you won the John Cuddihy Volunteer of the Year Award for 2025 for your role in a particular search and rescue operation, and the role you played in it was pivotal. I don't know how much details you can tell us about that particular scenario, but feel free to tell us what the circumstances were, who was involved, and your own role in it, or as much as you can tell us anyway.
I'm a qualified first responder with Civil Defence, and I'm in a call-out group, and it was just before midnight when our Civil Defence officer received a call out from An Garda Síochána to help us. They were requesting our assistance in the search scene for an elderly gentleman who had, we believe, to have the early on stage dementia. He had been missing for a couple of hours.
And was this an incident that took place recently, or was it earlier in the year, Jack?
I'd say it was October or so. It was a couple of months back. Still very much fresh in my memory. Now, for operational reasons, I can't go into a lot of details, but the situation was how everything fell into place was pretty much like we've been training for ages. The first thing was we all arrived in, The drone jeep went out with 2 of our officers. We have a magnificent drone team with very fancy, with an incredibly advanced DJI drone that's able to switch to thermal optic lenses. We're able to search for heat signatures. And just as we were coming out, we were leaving the base, I was on the radio to one of our other officers, basically saying, like, where are we going? Where are we going searching? So I was on the maps on my phone, basically kind of looking at where outhouses were, where his kind of fields were laying on, and see how far into fields would we have to go searching with the jeeps and a couple of other vehicles that were already on the way behind us. We got there and we went searching on the outhouses, and then we were making our way back to the drone jeep to talk to our drone guys to see where the next steps were. And it was one of the locals. He made a comment. He looked at a part of brush and said, that bush there has been disturbed and that couldn't be done by an animal. And I says, what you mean? I says, oh, that would definitely have to be human. So for us, when we're searching, one of the things we clue into is the knowledge by locals. So we're like, okay, where is this kind of his field? And your man, he turned around, pointing in a general direction. We got the drone up. The drone flew over to where he was kind of pointing, and we found him. His heat signature had popped out. It was bright white on the monitor, so they're still heating him. So myself and 2 others literally got in one of the vans. We literally drove parallel to field, hopped out, and we were able to treat him. We were able to get a foil blanket on him to make sure that he wasn't to develop hypothermia, get a bit of heat into him. Once more volunteers started to arrive on the scene, we then got him into our special search and rescue stretcher, brought him back to the van, which we got heated up in the rear at the time, so to keep him nice and warm. We wrapped it up nice and warm. We're still talking to him. One of our officers who was with me at the time, he's a paramedic with the National Ambulance Service. So he was able to get on to the National Ambulance Service and say, we need an ambulance to this location for this gentleman. So we were able to treat him. We were able to get him talking, and we got him treated at the scene. By the time we got back to, a couple of minutes later, where our base headquarters were set up, the ambulance branch in NASA just pulled up, and we were able to do a full handoff. And I do believe now he made a full recovery. But the family and the locals were very grateful to us at the time. But at the time, we told the locals, thank you for pointing out to us. That's something that for them just completely seemed out of place. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, as you said, the local knowledge on the ground can be invaluable. And I can only imagine, as you said, this gentleman in his mid-70s, early onset of dementia, must have been so frightened, as I would imagine his family were. It must be very gratifying to know you've played a part and a pivotal role in resolving that situation. Such a positive outcome from what could have been a potentially terrible scenario.
Yes, as you know yourselves from the amount of reporting that goes on pertaining to most of our searches, at this moment in time, we were searching for quite some time for 2 gentlemen that went missing, one beside Loop Head and one by Kilkee. And those 2 men are still missing. The searches have been stood down, but we're hoping for the families that one day a result might come out of that. Yeah. Those are some of the sad outcomes in those. But when you get a situation like we just described there, that's an extremely gratifying outcome, not for the people who were on that call up, but for the entire unit. So yeah, that means that outcome for us was a massive boost for the unit.
And yeah, such a positive outcome, massive boost for you and the unit. But there will be scenarios, as you've just touched on, where there isn't a positive outcome, or you maybe it is a role. I can imagine search and rescue work, Jack, at times can be physically and emotionally demanding. How do you manage those challenges during and after an operation, particularly if it is an operation where there have been sad or tragic outcomes?
So what we normally do is that before we go out, or before we even make the decision to actually deploy a team, we do a risk assessment. Is this a particular location that we can get access to, especially for working in coastal areas? Is the weather okay? Do we have enough bodies, not bodies, but I mean personnel who can cover the deployment in certain areas, and what the experience is? If we can say yes to all of those, we deploy, we go out there. Now, I haven't aided in the actual physical recovery of deceased individuals, but I can tell the members of the public that we have access to a 24-hour critical incident stress management helpline. and basically nobody knows who gets access to it. But basically anybody from any civil defence unit can ring the number up, and we can talk to a CISM therapist expert over the phone. We also have CISM people that can be backup based to help us get through certain things, and we go from there. But yes, the search and rescue work is challenging. Physically and emotionally, you might have to be bringing somebody back on a stretcher throughout a couple of sets of fields. You might have to switch it over and such. But at the end of the day, we knew what we were getting in for when we signed up. We knew what the fact is. First Clare Civil Defence is pretty much, it is second nature. It is our bread and butter per se. A lot of counties, if they're getting new search equipment, they normally give us a phone call and say, how would you go about doing W, X, Y and Z? And we were able to give them a lot of details. So we're quite grateful that we have a lot of volunteers with a lot of experience.
What did it mean to you to be named Volunteer of the Year? I'm sure you'll pay tribute to your colleagues as well, but it must be very pleasing to be recognised.
It was. I honestly, they don't tell you even if you're nominated. So that was kind of surprise. I was actually there's a group of 5 of us sitting in a row back at the base, and I looked to the left, looked to the right when I got my name nominated. I says, okay, I've got nominated. That's really good. And then when I was called out as I've been the Volunteer of the Year, I actually won it. I was kind of looked to my left, looked to the right. I was like, no, there's no way here. There's something going on. So I took a couple of seconds. I did get quite emotional before I did go up and accept it. And I gave a small speech. And for me, and what it means to the person who we named the cup after, John was an absolute gentleman. Over 20 years experience of being a dedicated volunteer to Clare Civil Defence. At the time when I got the award, I paid tribute to his family. I thanked his wife. I thanked his family for giving us a bit of John, or allowing John to be with us. An absolute gentleman, human being, and honestly, we'd have all gone through brick walls for John. An amazing individual, but he's lived on with us. I was very privileged to be asked to be a member of the detail for his honour guard for his burial at Clona for the Requiem. And the one thing is that we all took away from that was the amount of people that came up to us and said, Gormíl Mágah, or thank you for what you're doing. Because some people out in certain parts of the Clona community knew what civil defence was, but when they saw everybody coming out in their number ones, in their number one dress uniforms, and seeing the foot drill and everything, there were locals there who admitted to us we held it up until the foot drill came around, and a lot of those people, that's when the emotions finally started to break through. But yeah, no, for us, and every day when we have a couple like that lives on in John's memory, we live up to John's memory and what he would have wanted us to do. So yeah.
Just finally, Jack, what would you say to anyone considering joining the civil defence or getting involved in volunteering in their community?
I would say to you is that volunteering, it's a great aspect we have in this country. We're the Clare capital of volunteers, I think, for 2027. We got the award in Spain. I think that speaks levels about what volunteering means. It's the backbone of this county. Whether you're up in Ballyvaughan or going all the way down to Kilkee, or even back out as far as Scariff, Suburn, and those different places. And the thing that volunteerism means a lot to people in this county. If you want to come join civil defence, I'll say this to you, it is extremely rewarding. Some of the qualifications you get to do, and I would also say is that we've had a lot of members who've joined civil defence in the past number of years have gone on to join the frontline response agencies. We have one of our own colleagues who left civil defence to go join the Garda College in Templemore. So she's in the Garda College in Templemore. She got a massive insight into what civil defence does and the work we do on Garda Síochána. And a lot of our senior officers are former or current firefighters themselves. We have one of our civil defence officers, Stephen Hayes. He was the former station sub-officer here in Ennis. We have another first officer who lives down the road from me, and he was formerly retained firefighter in Ennis. He's whole-time firefighter in Limerick now. So it's a magnificent organisation to be involved in. It's some of the stuff you get to do is absolutely out of this world. But there's no need to be kind of this. You don't need to be having a yearly physical test with us. We don't do any of that. Keep yourself up to just a general normal physicalness, and you'll be grand. And it's actually take it all in. because just the amount of knowledge you can take in from different people, because at the moment we have some of our senior officers, if you put them together in one room, it's well over 300 plus years of joint service. So yeah, that's one massive thing in the unit that we do have.
Okay. Well, look, congratulations again, Jack, and thank you for joining me on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.